as much as these things externally were happening to us, there's also a moment where you start to internalize, God, what do you want to do in my life? And there's some things that I watched Shannon over this season really start to crucify the flesh, crucify some things in her life so that she could step into that resurrection moment where God would begin to move.
Welcome to the Everyday Faith Podcast, where we believe you can live out your faith every day by starting with belief, embracing your mission, committing to obedience, and pursuing community. I'm Dan.
And I'm Jess. And today we've got a familiar face joining us, John Velsor. And we get the honor of having his wonderful wife, Shannon, with us as well. And besides being great friends of ours, they are pastors, the founders of North Star Community Church and Kingdom Leadership. Based out of Minneapolis, they are the parents of two athletic boys, great kids, and they love exploring new coffee shops, cheering their kids on from the sidelines, and encouraging kingdom leaders to grow in their God-given potential. So we're excited to be continuing the conversation from when John joined us back in December. So, John and Shannon, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having us.
Come on, we're always honored to be with you guys.
Yeah.
It's always a fun time, so look out, listeners. If you missed part 1 and part 2, you're in for a treat today. How's that?
Come on.
Well, so we're continuing the conversation, which, again, for those who may or may not recall from our time about a month ago, you shared with us, John, about some betrayal that you and your family walked through, the journey of forgiveness. And you introduced to us, among many great things, the term cruciform, the cruciform life. And I thought you'd probably do a better job redefining that and sharing about that with our listeners.
Yeah, thanks. The cruciform life is learning to live like Jesus lived, but also how Jesus died. And it's the crucifix. So the cruciform life is shaped by the cross. So Jesus on the cross was nailed to a cross. His hands are in surrender to God, and his arms are open wide in sacrificial love toward others. And that's the life that God calls us to live here on earth, in total surrender to him and in sacrificial love toward others. And that's the cruciform life.
Wow. It's a beautiful
You sounded so
picture.
Professional when you
Did you like that?
And you even like folded your hands and you're like, that's a cruciform.
When I was done, I came back to a good boy stance.
Good boy stance. All right. Now, more importantly, Shannon, we're so excited you're with us. Thank you.
Excited to be here. Yeah, excited to be here. Thank you, guys.
What's a fun fact we need to know about Shannon?
Oh, goodness. Is it like something you wouldn't guess, or like favorite food?
What about both?
Okay. You wouldn't guess that I am actually a skilled and trained Muay Thai fighter.
How do I not know that?
Okay, Jess, you'll know.
Years.
Okay.
Wait, if I had that, that would be one of the first things I tell people. How do you hold that back?
Jess, you'll understand this. I actually am trained and skilled Muay Thai fighter because I used to work out at Farrell's, which they use the Muay Thai fighting technique. So actually, I've introduced myself to Navy SEALs sharing that fact, and I don't know why they laugh, but they have. So
that is too
but
funny.
I feel like, because Jess, you were a trainer there. You understand that's the kick boxing method they use. So I now claim that as a skill set.
I love it.
Okay,
I love it.
I see.
The mates?
I mean, there's no stretching there. It's exactly what the words
It's
mean.
very accurate. This is very accurate.
That's how you got me, and it's how you kept me too. So,
All right.
Not
He
going
tries to
anywhere.
run away, she catches him.
She didn't.
And
say
your
that.
favorite type of food or favorite food?
Oh, goodness. Gosh, we lived in Chicago for 5 years. So if we go back, just Giordano's slice of Chicago-style pizza is pretty great.
All
Yeah,
right.
that's my favorites. I also love Mexican food.
Do you like authentic Mexican food or American Mexican
Tex-Mex.
food?
No, American Mexican.
Yeah.
I know you like brain tacos, and I'm not in on that. No. And I actually don't love eating food in Mexico. I actually like Mexican food in America.
All right. Funny. Too good.
Well, thank you for the updates and getting to know you better. I did not realize that tied to you being a skilled fighter.
I love it. Well, okay. So Shannon, John shared a little bit about how your experience was going through the last couple of years. Is there anything that you want to share with us just about kind of how things were from your perspective?
I think he did a really good job sharing kind of the experience that we had in terms of just really what I learned through betrayal, through hard circumstances, was honestly, although I thought that I wasn't a people pleaser, and I thought that my identity was really rooted in Christ and what God thought of me, that was really put to the test. And I had to learn to really be okay with if people don't understand. Jesus was misunderstood many, many times. And I love early church, like the early church mothers and fathers, like the pioneers of the Christian faith. They used to think that if they were experiencing resistance or pushback or difficulties, they would wear it as a badge of honor. And they actually looked at it as that was them being successful in their mission. And, for many reasons, we just live in a very different time and era in the world, in Christianity. And so, there are times where I think, or I thought, man, if I'm getting resistance, if I'm getting spiritual warfare, if I'm dealing with these things, there's actually something really wrong with me or my leadership. Sure. And now that's the truth is, yes, there are things that I needed to learn and grow and that I'm still learning and growing in. And I think that every pastoral leader, every business leader who professes to be a Christian, that should be a statement we all make regardless of where we're at. Like, we're all growing, we're all learning, we're never going to arrive. But for me, I really had to learn to lean into really being okay, regardless of of being misunderstood. Jesus was misunderstood. Of being misrepresented, Jesus was misrepresented. I had to learn not to be so high trust. I learned through psychology that we often assume that what we would do is the same thing that other people would do. And so when you don't get that back, and when you're like, I would assume the best of this person, I wouldn't assume. And so you give that high trust. There was more discernment I had to learn as a leader, that I would love to live in a little Pollyanna world where I really would. And that's kind of how I entered the ministry, and kind of just been my worldview is like, just high trust. Everybody's great. And even if they don't act great, there's greatness in them, and I had to learn that that is actually true. And so
and then
discernment and
you
wisdom.
Found out that wasn't true.
No, I mean, the goodness of God is inside, the ability to be that is inside of all of us. Sure. But people don't always choose that. So, and I haven't always chosen that. So again, I don't want to be critical of other people, but it was a huge leadership learning lesson for me of just, there were a lot of things I had to learn in leadership.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then what were the next steps you learned? You went through this hard period, betrayal, and then like you guys were faithful through it. You forgave. Then what?
Yeah. Well, one thing that John and I have been processing is we really, every year, like you guys probably do, we pray for like, what's the direction of this year? What's a word of the year, a verse of the year? And so for us personally, we just felt like this was the year of harvest in our lives. And what I learned in that season is that we all harvest something, we all reap something, but it's really based off of the seeds that we plant in the prior season. And a lot of times, I mean, I'm guilty where, we hear this is going to be a great season. This is going to be a harvest season. I'm like, yeah, this is my season. I'm going to receive. But what we forget is that we are responsible for the seeds that we've planted in previous seasons, and that we're actually going to reap the seeds that we plant in those seasons. And so in a really hard season, we chose over and over to plant seeds of forgiveness, of blessing, of love, of kindness, of not seeking our own justice or not seeking to elevate ourselves or vindicate ourselves. Instead, we just continued to plant seeds of blessing, faithfulness, forgiveness, obedience to the Lord. He loves obedience more than sacrifice. And so we were just obedient, whether we appreciated what he was asking us to do or not, we were obedient. And in the reaping season, now I can say we began to reap after a season of sowing those seeds, incredible blessings. And I love the concept of leaning into hard things, because when we lean into those hard things, if we lean into them God's way, they can actually become the very opportunity and vehicle for blessing. So the thing that looks like the hard thing is actually sometimes God's way of routing us to a blessing. And so some of the blessings that we've experienced were one, we actually last year, I was actually praying. I fell asleep listening to a sermon on Deuteronomy 1:11, which is that the Lord will bless you 1,000 times, basically. I'm paraphrasing. And I fell asleep listening to this sermon, and I was like, oh, and it wasn't John, so that's why I fell asleep. But it was really good. I would never fall asleep listening to your sermon, honey. But it was a really great sermon. And the next morning I woke up and I opened up my Bible app, which is not, I don't usually open up my phone to pray first, but I just looked at the verse of the day and it was the exact same verse. And so God began to download, like every now and then when God speaks to me, I can write journals, like pages and pages in my journal. So I'm writing pages of what God is just really speaking to me. And I felt like the Lord was just confirming that scripture, that word, that direction, and kind of the starting of, there are spiritual seasons we go through. And so that scripture, that dream, I had a dream that night about it. The sermon, because I went to sleep listening to a sermon about it. That was kind of the closing we felt of a hard season and the beginning of a blessing season. And so literally the morning that I read that verse, we got a call that day from an organization called Rev Fresh, and it's all about blessing reverence, blessing pastors. And they called and said, hey, we want to give you a grant for whatever you would like to do. And it was a good amount of money. And so we toyed around with what did we want to do with it. And we decided to invest it in updating the exterior of our house. And it was one of those projects that I wanted to do for a couple of years, and it was just unexpected, and it was
cool.
So cool. You want to share your blessing? What happened? There was a lot of material blessings and a lot of relational blessings. That we could go on and on, but that was kind of the start.
It's an amazing concept of, hey, we're going through a difficult season, and we're choosing obedience. Yeah. And Lord, we want to plant seeds, right, of the forgiveness, of blessings for other people, of, we're going to still be at the ball game with our kids, and we're going to give them our best. We're not going to, we're going to force them to suffer, right? Like planting all those good seeds. That's amazing.
Well, you think about how much we're tempted to isolate when things aren't going well, right? Yeah. And if we know anything, isolation is the worst thing we could do, So I think about how you guys could have just hunkered down as a family and, started pushing everybody away because of hurts and whatever. And instead, I'm guessing that's, like you said, is an area that you received relational blessing as well. And that came in part by leaning into it. John, share some of kind of what came on your end.
Well, I would say, I think one of the things that even for Shannon, where when you talk about that cruciform life, there's a depth that has to happen. And so as much as these things externally were happening to us, there's also a moment where you start to internalize, God, what do you want to do in my life? And there's some things that I watched Shannon over this season really start to crucify the flesh, crucify some things in her life so that she could step into that resurrection moment where God would begin to move. And so even if people are listening and they're walking through it, it's that moment where you take a step back and go, God, what are you trying to do in me? Mm-hmm. I hate everything that's going on around me, but what are you trying to speak to me, do inside of me? And I think I had to get to that place too, where I remember when we were walking through it and Shannon was, hey, we need to pray about this. And I'm like, I got special prayers I'm praying for these people. Like, Lord.
There's some interesting scriptures in Psalms about David wanting God to smash their teeth on the rocks that you can look at it and really.
I pray their flesh may be torn so their soul might be saved.
Yes. And there's some fun ones in there that you're like, I don't think the God
I use that one.
I didn't pray those, but I did read.
Did reference
David's
them.
writings. I didn't pray
out
them.
loud.
Out loud. But out of the abundance of the heart, okay, never
a lot
mind.
of passion.
Yes. I would say, so one of the things that Shannon and I did to kind of help us really step out of this really hard season was we started taking communion together every morning. We would take communion together. Lord, purify my heart. It's with David's writing, like, Lord, renew a right spirit within me. And so we would take communion, and then even on my phone, I would have the list of people's names that wounded me the deepest. And I would say, Lord, help me to forgive. And I would list off their names. I would then pray for them. Lord, I just release any kind of unforgiveness in my heart. Purify my heart, Lord. Renew a right spirit within me. And that was great. And then Shannon was like, all right, now you need to bless them. And I was like,
They weren't even mad at him. It was me, but he still couldn't do
I said,
it.
I'm not at that place. She was like, well, John, it's the godly thing to do. I was like, well, I'm not so godly then. So I could forgive,
I look like Jesus?
but it was, I was like, man, there's a whole nother level to this that I realized I could forgive. Lord, I forgive him and I let it go. Purify my heart. But that was about me making sure that my heart was good. And then it's where the scripture says, bless those that persecute you.
Mm.
And I think that's what we would both say that we felt like we went through in that hard season was not just betrayal, but it was also persecution. It was personal. It was deep. It was hard. It was offensive. It was dark.
It was witchcraft.
It was evil.
Yeah.
And I struggled with that. I got to be honest. I struggled with praying blessing over their life. And it took me about a week. And here's what I'll say is I finally got to a place I knew my heart was pure when one day, without any kind of prompting, I just began to now go down the list of forgiveness because I forgave them. Now my next step was to bless them. And I just prayed God's blessing upon their life, upon their home, upon their family. God, I pray that you would bless them for all that they have done. I pray that you would bless their marriages today, bless their children today, God. And all of a sudden I realized something changed in me. And when I started praying blessing, what I'll tell you is this, that week, the same week is the week that Shannon got the phone call from the organization Rev Fresh. That same week, Shannon and I went to another church. We sat at a church and a guest speaker was there. They don't know me. I don't know them. There's no connection. And then the guy comes off the stage and during the altar time, they're praying, they're worshiping. And he just turns and said, God spoke to me and told me that my church is supposed to bless your church. And here's what we're going to do. And it was everything that we needed. It was the resources that they gave our church was exactly the number we had needed.
Well, and the cool thing, not to interrupt you, but he didn't know we were pastors because we were supposed to be there early. We didn't make it early, and that might have been my fault. So we were just sitting in the audience with probably 3,000 people, and he didn't know us from Adam. Like, he came up, the Lord spoke to him, and he said, are you guys pastors? So he didn't even know we were pastors. We hadn't been like hobnobbing with him before. Like, he didn't know who we were. And he came up and he said, while I was preaching, the Lord told me you were pastors. So that was kind of cool because we weren't, even sitting with the pastors of the church. And then he said, the Lord told me you were pastors. And my church was given this crazy, extravagant check when I was speaking at another church. And I told the Lord I would tithe to another church off of that. And so he said, so I'm going to tithe off of that blessing I received into your church. And there was probably 30 pastors in those rows. And so that was kind of wild that, that in that church, maybe not in those rows, in that whole section. That was, and then he prayed an incredible prophetic prayer. He may have been like 6'5" or something. So it was like this arm span. 6'7". So he just prayed this. And it was like the Lord told him what we had been experiencing. And then like, this is God taking care of you. God sees you. God is with you. Continue forward. And so that was another incredible story within the same week.
Yeah. What I'll say is the backstory.
Can I pause? Hold on a second here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys have these great stories and you always throw in something that I want to comment on so badly. You can't just throw in 6'7" and then like, just keep going forward.
We just throw it in there.
5 or 6'7" and then keep going forward. I'm like, what?
They just threw it in there. You just gotta.
When I say our 2.5-year-old was hanging out with the neighbor who's amazing, and she comes back and she's like 6'7", 6'7". We're like, how did you learn this already? So, anyways, thank you for putting that in there.
Sorry.
You can edit that one.
You can edit it.
No, I loved it. You keep going.
I was one of the things I was going to say was, what nobody knew was sitting in there. It was a great sermon. It was great worship, but I literally was standing there holding Shannon's hand. I was standing, she was sitting. I knew she was defeated. I was discouraged. And I just remember praying this prayer, Lord, if you want me to quit, I'll quit. And I remember holding her hand, and there's nothing over spiritual about this. It's just something I did. I just took 3 deep breaths, and every time I took a breath, I simply said, Lord, I trust you. I took another deep breath. I held my wife's hand, and I said, Lord, I trust you. On the 3rd time I took a breath and said, Lord, I trust you, all of a sudden, this large man
with a large wingspan
came up and he was like, hey, are you guys pastors? And I was like, oh, yes. He was like, yeah, the whole time I was preaching, the Lord spoke to me and the Lord told me to do this. And it was just like,
wow.
And I knew when we left, I remember getting in the car with Shannon, I go, there is no doubt in my mind that God has called me, and I am not going back, and I am not trying to rethink, am I called to this? Am I good enough to this? God is restoring things, and God is rebuilding. So those are some of that's not even scratching the surface of the things that we got to experience through this, but that
was like the start of the year where God started to shift, the circumstances. God allowed the circumstances the tide to turn. And hard seasons are things that God uses, but when we lean into them the right way, they can actually be the things that he uses. And how we end and handle those hard things will absolutely determine what we experience in that next season. So that's encouragement to anybody that's out there going through a challenge, going through a heartbreak, going through a betrayal, or just going through something that they're just patiently waiting on God. It might not even be hard, but the waiting part is really hard. Yeah. If we wait well, if we endure, like the word of God says, well, like we are literally setting God up to be able to bless us supernaturally. And so the blessings we experienced were not natural. They were supernatural. They were not by our wisdom, our intellect, how talented we were. Like it had nothing, absolutely nothing to do with us. And that's actually the beautiful part about it, is that we can say we did nothing to bring blessings in. We did nothing to make these things happen,
Well, and I would say, you did, right? You were faithful. You were obedient. You were good stewards, right? You didn't punish other people for what you were going through. There's a lot of great character pieces here that I think the Lord wants to bless, right? And a lot of people, including myself, there's areas I need to grow in before the Lord can even trust us with blessings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So it's cool to see the character that you have and the way that he now can trust you and has been trusting you with these huge blessings.
Yeah. I think it starts with that part of crucifying the flesh. And for me, it was being able to forgive when I didn't want to forgive. And it was being able to bless when I didn't want to bless. And so there was a part of me that God was dealing with internally and spiritually that I think that was the turning point for our lives.
Yeah. It's interesting how what the world tells us to do or what our flesh would tell us to do is almost the opposite of what God would almost always tell us to do. Like if the world is doing something, you can basically say, do the opposite and it'll be effective. I think at that time, one of the areas that was being affected was financial. And so what's so interesting to me is that, and this kind of segues into some of our blessings. So one of the things that I love about how God's kingdom works is it's an upside down kingdom. So when our finances were what we were nervous about, or the church's finances were what we were nervous about, we actually decided we're going to do the opposite. Instead of being scarcity mindset, instead of holding on and trying to control and living in fear, we just started giving money. We just started giving giving. And it was not easy, and it was not in a way where it was like, I'm following Dave Ramsey's principles. No, we were not. We were like giving. I was like, you know what? If this is the area the enemy is going to attack, I'm going to sow it into God's kingdom, because he cannot steal that money. That's the one thing that can't be stolen. That's the one thing that can't be manipulated. And so what is so interesting to me is like our church started giving more. Our church has now given 20% of its income away this year. Our youth group raised $20,000. Teenagers, middle schoolers raised $20,000. But that was not done in a season of excess. That was done in a season where it was completely an obedient faith step. And what I love about that is part of our blessing story was that we had personally and privately really felt like if the enemy's trying to attack our finances, then we're going to give it back to God, because it's all his anyways, right? And so we had actually given 3 times, 3 miracle offerings, which are what we do to raise money for missions. We had done that 3 times in a row with all of our savings for cars. And we are Dave Ramsey people. We don't, we just pay for everything in full. We don't have debt. And so it's like we were giving away any kind of car we could have bought. Like we were taking it off the table. It was like, and we weren't driving brand new cars. We were driving cars.
So I remember your cars were in the shop quite often. You became friends with the mechanic. That's all I know.
Yes.
Oh, he knows us very well. He knows our children. Yeah.
That's how you know your car's not doing well.
But what is really cool is in that year where in the beginning of the year, we got that grant to redo the exterior of our house. What a blessing. And then what John had shared, then somebody poured and blessed our church financially, gave to our church. As we were giving out, the blessings just kept coming in, and nobody knew. And I wouldn't even promote that people should do what we did. You have to hear from the Lord. Because I also, sometimes people do silly things and say, God said, and it's not God's fault if you were not wise. But we knew that this was the Lord speaking. He confirmed it to us. And so we had given that money. And within 9 months, we had given 3 times for 3 cars, all of our savings. Our family received 3 cars for free. And they were like very nice cars. Our son received one. My husband received one. And that was right when we needed it. Nobody knew. And I'm kind of big in like, I don't share my need. God knows my needs, so I don't need to figure it out. And I don't need to tell people. If it's going to be met by God, I want God to meet it. I don't want to make it happen. So somebody just knew. And my husband got to go pick out a car. And the funny thing, as we were shopping for his car, I kept saying, I love this make and model of a car, but we weren't buying a car for me. We were buying it for him. And so we bought that for him, and it was incredible, huge blessing. And then a month later, we got a call for me that somebody we knew wanted to give me their car. And I was just blown away. It had 20,000 miles, so it wasn't brand new, but pretty new. And
that's amazing, yeah.
I asked, what is the make and model? Can I ask her what kind of car? I didn't think I would. I just said, what kind of car is it? And they wanted to give me the exact make and model of the car that when John was shopping that I said I loved. So he got his dream car. I got my dream car. And no 16-year-old should get a dream car. So my son got a 20-year-old Toyota Corolla with
it's a perfect
not
car.
A lot of miles, which is the perfect 16-year-old car.
Indeed.
And none of that came from like people within the church.
No.
This isn't like we told people our story. Here's what we're walking through. This was moments where people like, for me, it was somebody who said, hey, I was praying and the Lord spoke to me that I'm to get you a car. And I was like, bro, I appreciate that. But Shannon and I were driving Buicks. We were driving your grandpa's vehicle. And so they were like, no, you need to go get something nicer. And we want to take care of you. We want to bless you. And Shannon was like, I would like to have this car. I'm like, babe, there's no chance. Like, we're not doing that. And so it was amazing to see like God's hand just show up and provide, where we started walking after going through what we went through. We started walking into this miracle season for our life. And it was only God. There's nothing you could say. It was like, oh, well, you guys kind of, it was only God.
Come on. Well, there's so many people you don't hear a lot of people saying, I'm going through a miracle season right now, right?
Maybe not. Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are going through a difficult season, that are going through a season of character building, let's call it.
Yeah.
Right? So what would you want to say as we wrap up all of this? What would you want to say to them who are going through that season?
Lean into it. It might be hard. It will be painful. There were things that I had to learn for God to be able to use me at a bigger capacity. There was wisdom that we both had to obtain. There was strength that we had to learn. There was prayer. I mean, we had to learn how to pray, intercede in a different kind of a way. But when we lean into it, rather than go, this is uncomfortable, I hate it, I'm going to complain about it, I'm going to tell everybody how bad it is, and I'm going to be mad at God for it happening, you're literally like losing the best opportunity in your life. The greatest change comes from when we are the least comfortable. And so we were very uncomfortable in that season. But rather than try to lean away from it, we leaned into it. And we were like, okay, God, what do you want to teach us? What do you want to do? And part of that is just a surrendered, obedient life. Like, the outcome is in your hands, God. Our life is in your hands. Our future is in your hands. The work we do is in your hands. Our children are in your hands. And if you will allow us to go through a pruning and a threshing floor, to use biblical language, kind of season, then I'm going to trust you. In the end, it's for my good. And man, I would never want to live through that again, but I would never trade those lessons, because I got to be honest with you, there's an inner confidence inside of at least myself, I can't speak for you, that I've had people comment on it like, wow, you're so confident. And I'm like, but not in an arrogant way. It's just, that only comes through going through really hard things where you find that you can still stand up even when honestly the enemy and maybe other people want to see you on the ground. And if you can, if we can humble ourselves enough to receive the blessings and the value in it, and then let God change us. Because I want to be honest, we weren't victims in this situation. It was spiritual warfare, and that was coming from the enemy. And so just like Job, the Lord allowed it. And I didn't like it, but the Lord allowed it. And so God trusted us with actually this season, because for us to have a greater impact, we have to endure hard things. We have to endure painful things. In fact, I love the idea, and I've heard it from a lot of people, that the level, our pain threshold really determines our capacity. So if my pain threshold is really low, my capacity is going to be really low. But if I can do really hard things, then I can actually do a lot more really good things too. But what usually stops us in our tracks, in our purpose, is that it's too painful, it's too hard, and then we give up. But if we don't give up and we lean into it, we're growing in capacity, we're growing in our influence, we're growing in our wisdom, we're growing in our calling, we're growing in our gifts. So I say lean into it and don't despise it.
That's so encouraging. It's so hard in those hard seasons, even hard moments, right? That I know in my own mind, I've had to really battle to not give up on the things that matter the most, right? And that's when it counts, is when it's uncomfortable, when it's hard.
Yeah.
I think for Shannon, it was like you watch her grow in her confidence, but it was that was the one thing people, I think, tried to take. Everything that the enemy meant for bad, God began to turn it into something good.
Amen.
Come on.
And then increased it in our life. It's like you dug a hole for me to die in. And that was the one thing that God actually ends up using. And I would just encourage the people with this is, what if what you're going through isn't punishment, but rather preparation?
Come on.
And that God's saying, listen, I'm gonna teach you something. I hate that you're having to go through this. And I hate that they're crucifying you. I hate that they're mocking you and spitting on you. But if you go through this, on the other side of the cross is this amazing miracle called the resurrection. And if you watch what I'll do, I'll resurrect the very things that they tried to crucify. And you'll come back stronger than ever before. And I think that for people's lives, if they're walking through it, maybe lean into that and ask God, what are you trying to teach me? There's moments you're like, I want to teach them. And it's like, no, God, what are you teaching me? And let him just begin to move and speak into your heart and lean into it and see what he does. Because I believe on the other side is a miracle that's waiting to happen.
Yeah. You guys are
So good,
amazing.
you guys.
Thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited that this year's the year of harvest. And thanks again for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for listening to this conversation from the Everyday Faith Podcast. Our goal is to inspire everyday faith conversations. Please join us by rating and reviewing wherever you're listening, and most importantly, by sharing with a friend. For more resources like this, visit our website, askaboutmyfaith.com. God bless you as you live out your faith in your everyday rhythms of life.